So, as Mahealani, actually, thank you very much for the introduction. Hello, can you hear me? Okay. As Mahealani mentioned, I'll be talking tonight about nearshore water quality and monitoring nearshore water quality in Hawaii and in the Insular Pacific. Again, my name is Gordon Walker, and I work for PacIOOS, or the Pacific Island Ocean Observing System.
Could you tell us where you were born and how long you lived in Hawaii?
Oh, yes. I was born in Jamaica, West Indies. I moved to the U.S. when I was 8 years old. We moved to New York. I went to school in California, then went back to New York. From New York, went to India, lived in India for a little while, and then moved back to New York, and then moved to home years ago. Yes, and I've been here since. Yes. Thank you. So the Integrated Coastal Ocean Observation Act was signed into place or put into place in 2009 by President Obama. And the reason why this was done was because the government realized that there was no real comprehensive network of sensors to monitor oceanographic phenomena. So, for example, if you had an earthquake in Chile and there was like a tsunami, propagating across the Pacific, we really didn't have a widespread comprehensive network of sensors to sort of track this phenomenon. And so the Integrated Coastal and Ocean Observation Act was signed into place, and it established these 11 PacIOOS stations all around the US. So you have 3 on the East Coast. I actually have a pointer here. So you have 3 on the East Coast, 1 in the Caribbean, 1 in the Gulf of Mexico, 3 on the West Coast, 1 in the Great Lakes, 1 in Alaska, and 1 here in the Pacific. And I work for PacIOOS, and PacIOOS itself is centered here in Hawaii, or located here in Hawaii on the University of Hawaii campus. So what is PacIOOS? PacIOOS is an organization that brings together researchers, the community, and interested agencies, the US government, to understand and research the interaction between the water or coastal regions, specifically for our lab, and the community that may be directly impacted by those coastal regions. The Nearshore Water Quality Group, which I work for specifically, we have a suite of sensors, which I'll show you after the talk. We have 6 in Hawaii, 5 of them are on Oahu, 1 in Maui, in Kihei. We have 1 in American Samoa, Marshall Islands, Federated States of Micronesia, and Pohnpei, and Guam. Actually, I just came back from Guam, and I'll talk to you guys more about that later. The sensors that we have here in Oahu, we have 1 in the Aloi, 2 in Waikiki, so 1 by the Hilton Hawaiian Village, the other 1 by the Waikiki Aquarium. And we have 2 in over at Aina and Hawaii Kai, so 1 by Wailupe and 1 over by Copahead Marina. The sensors that we have on Maui, before I said that we only had 1, and there are 2 stars actually that are here on this map. This is Kahului Harbor, and over here is Kihei. The one in Kahului Harbor has been decommissioned, and we currently only have 1 sensor in Kihei. But when we call up the map that shows our sensors, we currently don't have a way to get rid of this star, so that's why it's still there. But we're working on it. So why is nearshore water quality important? Do we really ever think about it? Maybe not directly, or maybe not, obviously in our minds, but when we go to the beach, whether it be to recreate or to fish, snorkel, or in some cases to, obtain your food, then it becomes really, really important. And the coastal waters are pretty much, for most of us, the majority of us, unless you're doing deep sea research and the like, for the most part, most of us, our interactions with the ocean will be along the coastal waters. And so it's really important for us to understand what is going on in these waters, because they directly impact us. And we also have a direct impact on coastal waters, which I'll discuss later. So the sensors that we use to monitor nearshore water quality include Seabird 16 Plus, which I have over in the corner there, and I'll show you later. Seabird 37 SMP, and a YSI, or the YSI sonde. What do these sensors measure? So the Seabird electronic, the 16 plus V2, measures conductivity and temperature. And there's an algorithm that is programmed into the computer or into the board, the computer board that's on the sensor. And it takes conductivity and temperature and translates it or converts it into salinity. Measures depth. So the main body is a CTD. And we have an auxiliary sensor over here, which is a fluorometer that measures chlorophyll and turbidity. For the 37 SMP, it measures strictly a CTD, it measures conductivity, temperature, and depth. And again, it takes conductivity and temperature and converts it into salinity. And the YSI sonde measures conductivity and temperature, and again, converts that into salinity. Depth, chlorophyll, turbidity, dissolved oxygen, and pH. And this sensor is the one that we have located in Kihei on Maui. So water quality parameters. Actually, let me take a step back. So if anybody has any questions at any time, please feel free to ask, raise your hand. We'll stop, talk a bit, and then go back to the presentation. So the parameters that the sensors measure, we can take those parameters and we post them online, we archive the data, but what do they really mean? What are they indicators for or of, and why are they important? So the parameters, I'll go over some of them now, the ones that I mentioned before. So an example is, let's say, chlorophyll. If you have like a lot of heavy rains, let's say up in Manoa, and that rain comes down the streams and makes its way into the aloi, you will have, for example, groundwater runoff. Along the way, when that rainwater is coming down, it is bringing a lot of stuff with it. So that golf course, for example, that's at the end or at the mouth of the aloi, or at the beginning, the head of the aloi. Any nutrients or any fertilizer, excess fertilizer that runs off during that rain event, it's going to enter into the aloi. With that boost of nutrients, you'll probably see a spike or an increase in bacteria, in particular photosynthetic bacteria, which we'll pick up as chlorophyll on our sensors. Not only that, but the salinity of the water in the aloi will drop because you have a lot of fresh water, that rainwater coming down and entering the aloi. That's really important. I think most of you probably remember several years back, we had that gentleman die as a result of falling into the aloi, the flesh-eating bacteria, Vibrio. So their population, they are always in the aloi, but during or in a certain salinity window, when the salinity drops, their abundance will go up. And so he just happened to be unfortunate and fall in the aloi with a compromised immune system at that time, and things progressed from there. Another important indicator is turbidity. So when all that rainwater comes down, that brown water discharge carries with it a lot of stuff. It could be resuspended sediment, and along with that sediment, you have bacteria, you'll have chemicals that are carried along with it. And when it comes out of the mouth of the aloi, it's important for us to know what direction it's going to go. And it's going to go towards Waikiki, it's going to go towards Moana. Should we get in the water? We can't tell you whether or not to get in the water. That's the Board of Health, but we can at least let the public know the amount of turbidity that's coming out of the aloi. So how does our system or our network function? Ooh, let's see that T. So how does that work? So we have a sensor in the water, and that sensor collects the data. The data is then transmitted along a data cable to a modem, and the modem sends the data through a wireless connection that we have, an account that we have with Sprint, and sends it to the UH campus where it's stored on our servers. This is primarily for the sensors that we have here on Oahu. For the sensors that we have, or for the one we have on Maui, and for the sensors we have in the Insular Pacific, so American Samoa, Guam, Marshall Islands, that data is emailed back to us once a month. They download the data and they email it back to us. We process the data and then we put it on the server. So through the server, that data is readily available to the public or any agency who wants to use it. Sorry? So for our nearshore water, every 4 minutes, so it's near real time. Yes, for the sensors that are directly connected and telemetering data to the servers. For the sensors that have data, or for the sites that have data sent in, then it's once a month it's updated. So how to access that data? I think we do have internet here, so I can show you how to do it directly on the internet, but I'm going to take you through how to do it on the slides here. So you go to our website. When you go to our website, the main page will pop up, and these columns here are a drop-down menu. So when you hover over water characteristics, this drop-down menu will appear. So hover over water characteristics, and then you can choose what site you want to go to. And the example that I'm going to use today is the Hawaii Yacht Club, where we have a sensor located at the mouth of the Alawai. Or you can go to Voyager, which is an interactive map that is layered over a Google Earth platform. So everything you could do in Google Earth, you could do in Voyager, along with choosing filters that will show you how to get to the data that we have stored, not only for our lab, but for the other labs that are part of PacIOOS. So if you go to Voyager, which again, I'll show you after through the internet. You go to Voyager, then you simply click on Zoom to. Again, it's a drop-down menu. You can choose city, island, or region. That will get you within the general geographic neighborhood that you want to be in. And then you can choose your city or your specific region where we have a sensor. In this case, it's Honolulu. After you choose that, then you can zoom in further. Then you go over to the left-hand side of the page, and you will choose a filter. So in this case, choose water quality and nearshore sensors. And then from there, you can choose a parameter. So in this case, water temperature that you want to look at. You click on one of the icons. So the stars show you where we have a sensor on the South Shore. And then when you click on the icon, it will give you the data that you requested over here, water quality data. Water temperature data. So you can see for that particular day, the water temperature sort of in the morning time, and then as the day moves on, sort of picks up, gets warmer, and then dips back down again. So that's one way, or the way to access our data through Voyager. The example that I showed you, or that I mentioned earlier with the Alawai, it's really, really important because the Alawai sort of feeds right into Waikiki, which is a really popular tourist area, is a really popular surf area, a really popular canoe area. A lot of people go there, a lot of kids play there, residents go there, locals. So we have a sensor that is right at the mouth of the Alawai. The gray star shows where we used to have the sensor. And so it used to be across the canal, the mouth of the canal, but where that sensor was, you had to get in the water every time you wanted to change the batteries or clean the sensor. So when I joined the lab, I was like, oh, we're not going to be doing that anymore. So we moved it across the mouth of the canal. And so now it's underneath a floating dock, and you just put your hand in, pop it out. It's on a mooring. It's underneath the dock, pop it out, bring it onto the dock, and you can service and clean it there. So yeah, we made a significant change as to how to access that sensor. So the example that we have here, this is in July, a few years ago, and we had a fair amount of rain. And so you can see here where we had rainfall up in the back of Manoa. The rainfall registered here on the NOAA rain gauge. And you can see that here in our sensor, where you have, sorry, it's hard for me to, you have temperature, turbidity, salinity, and chlorophyll. You can see somewhat where the signature for the rain event showed up. But it's sort of patchy, the data, because right at that moment, the Sprint network went down over those few days. And so we're not getting data telemetered back to us. And our boss is like, what? But luckily, we have a backup. So even though the network goes down, the sensor is still collecting data. So that data is still there. It's just not necessarily available to everyone at the moment. So we can go back, retrieve the sensor, upload that backfill data, and then make it available to everyone. Not only, okay, so again, this is the same rain event, but now we went back, we pulled the data from the sensor, and we're able to get the full data set for that day, or for those few days when we had the rain. So as you can tell, with the rain coming down, the temperature and salinity dropped because you have a lot of fresh water coming down with the rainwater. The salinity also dropped in that mouth or in the aloi. And you can see here where the chlorophyll and turbidity shot up. So all that brown water runoff is coming down, all the water coming down and resuspended sediment, it showed up on our sensor as turbidity. And then the nutrients that were coming down from off the land also, whether it be from fertilizer, from, like I mentioned before, the golf course, people's lawns, the nutrients caused a slight spike in chlorophyll, which is an indicator of a bloom or an abundance in photosynthetic, primarily bacteria or microorganisms in the aloi.
Question?
Yes.
How fast did that political spike happen? How quickly did it respond?
Oh, within a few hours. Yeah, so the rain started coming down. And so within maybe half a day to a day, I would say, you began to see sort of the chlorophyll levels pick up. Yeah. So the cells, as they get more nutrients, like if we eat a lot, we get tired, we go to sleep, we may gain weight. But for these guys, when they eat a lot, they start to multiply. So they uptake nutrients, and then they begin to grow, and then they undergo mitosis and they split in two, and then so on and so forth. They keep dividing, and then their numbers start to go up. Shortly after, I think the next day or two, there was a strain on the sewage system, and the sewage pipe that was running through the aloi broke. I forgot how many thousands of gallons of sewage spilled in, but this is the alert from Clean Water Branch. And so that second spike that you see here is the response to sewage. So you see over here, the salinity and temperature, there's no change in it. So that's not rainwater. And so this was a direct response to the sewage that entered into the aloi. So all that sewage is horrible to us. It's like, oh, that's gross, that's disgusting. But the microorganisms are like, yay, food. And so they start uptaking nutrients, and their numbers again start to go up. Their abundance goes up. And it went up so much that in part it contributed to the turbidity signature that you see here, along with the sewage that was in the water stream. But either abundance or numbers also contributed to the turbidity or how clear the water was. So it's a prime indicator or an indicator of what our instruments measure and what it may mean for people who have to interact with the aloi, for example. So the aloi, as I'm sure many of you know, people live at the mouth of the aloi, at the docks. They get in the water because you have to, get your canoe out of the aloi and then get it out. So it's a highly used area. And so it's important for us to understand what is going on in terms of the water of the aloi. Along with the data that you saw before, so sometimes plots and graphs are maybe not the best way to communicate information to people. So Brian Powell's lab, in conjunction with our lab, came up with this model. And the model shows where the brown water that's leaving the aloi may go. So it's a predictive model, depending on a few different parameters. So the amount of turbidity, the direction, wind, waves. And so it takes all this data, so oceanographic and atmospheric data, and it turns it through the model. And then you can go on our website and you can check if there's a heavy rain event to see where that brown water may go, if it's going to go towards Waikiki or towards Ala Moana. So this is an example from 2011 where we had a significant amount of rain, and that brown water persisted for quite a few days. And due to changes in wave and wind, it sort of whipped around first towards Waikiki and then a little bit towards Ala Moana Beach Park. So when I surf a lot, and I'm usually surfing down by like Marineland. So if you have Ala Moana, so you have Magic Island here, Ala Moana here, so right over here, Kewalos. So this area here. So whenever this model is down, we have a lot of rain, and I'm going out and I'm going to have a good time. Like, actually, I wait a few days after there's a lot of rain. But when I do go out, if the model is down, a lot of people, are like, hey, the groundwater plume model is down. What's going on? Where should we go? When should we go in? And I'm like, well, I can't really tell you when to go in. I took a few days off, and I'm going to go in now. But it's a really, really great tool for you to use if you're a surfer or a swimmer or a canoe paddler and you frequent the waters here. So that's the main, that's the main thing that our lab does. We deploy these water quality sensors and we monitor the water quality, as I said before, here in Oahu, on Maui and Kihei, and in Insular Pacific. But along with that, we also realize that other agencies and maybe even local organizations may want to get an understanding of what's going on in their specific area in terms of water quality. And our sensors, as you saw before on the map, we're not necessarily widely distributed here in Oahu or in Maui or in the Insular Pacific. We have very specific sites that we go to. So primarily for Oahu, we're on the South Shore. But if you are an organization and you wanted to find out what's going on in your specific area, let's say there's going to be some sort of renovation going on in a harbor nearby, or if they're going to be doing some sort of construction that's going to affect the coastline, then you can submit to us a short description of your project, and we review the description of the project, and we essentially come up with a memorandum of understanding, and we loan you the sensor. And we help you set it up. We put it up in the area that you want to get the data from, and we maintain it if it's here in Oahu. If it's somewhere else, then we have to train somebody to maintain it. But essentially, that's what the PacIOOS Water Quality Sensor Partnership Program is. So it's a partnership between researchers, natural resource managers, and others who want to get a clear or better understanding of what's going on in their coastal waters. PacIOOS, so the organization I work for, we provide the sensor itself, so the seabird here, and the primary parameters that it would measure would be temperature and conductivity, which would be converted into salinity, depth, chlorophyll, and turbidity. So some examples of partnerships that we have include a partnership with the Pacific Marine Science and Conservation Center. Kevin Rhodes is the contact person, and Simhir Diving. And this sensor, it was initially loaned out for 1 year, but they were getting really good data. And so they extended the partnership for another year. And so it's in Ponape in the Federated States of Micronesia. And he is measuring the water quality by a spawning area that these three commercially specific or commercially important groupers go to. So the fish, the groupers, that the species that he's studying, they are fished a lot, or a lot of people like to catch them. And so he wants to understand what's going on in the area where they come to spawn and how water quality affects their spawning aggregations. Another partnership that we have, this is a recent one. It's with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. And so they recently, I think, removed a vessel that was down at Palmyra Atoll. And there was a lot of resuspension of sediment in the water. And they are trying to rehabilitate or restore the coral reef surrounding the area where the ship was wrecked. And so they are deploying the sensor to get an idea of how, specifically, I think turbidity is the main thing they're looking at, how the turbidity of the area has shifted or will shift after they retrieve, or now that they've retrieved the wrecked ship. Another partnership that we have, this is a proposed partnership that we hope to start in September. It's with the Friends of Kewalos. And so Kewalo Basin here, it's Almana Beach Park, and Kewalo Boat Basin. They're going to start some restoration work for the harbor. And so the surfers, the Friends of Kewalos, it's a hui that sort of takes care of this area, this beach park. And so they approached us and asked us if we can deploy a sensor here while the restoration project is going on and the improvements to the harbor is going on, so that they can monitor the water quality to make sure that, you know, the people who are doing the renovations to the harbor are, you know, using best practices. So we don't necessarily, or we can't judge whether or not they're using best practices to renovate the harbor. All we can do is provide the data. And so that local organization approached us, and we're now going to set up a sensor here for them. So as I mentioned before, if you are part of a local organization and you have an interest or you would like to know more about what's going on in a specific area that we don't have a sensor, then, you know, feel free to contact us and we will try to accommodate you as best we can. Yes.
And so how is the information that the department was shared so that the general public or even yourself can see the information?
So for this particular project and for the partnership program, we don't have data being telemetered in near real time or in real time. We would deploy this. I would deploy the sensor. So I'd set up the mooring, I'd deploy the sensor, and once a month I would go and retrieve the sensor, download the data, and then upload that to the website. So it'll be on the PacIOOS website. Yeah, but instead of data coming through every 4 minutes, it would be once a month that you'd have that data there.
And how much does one of these sensors cost?
About $22,000. Yeah, so we
I
understand.
think this is a great project to partnership.
Yes, yeah.
Be limited by funding.
By funding, yeah. So if people are limited by funding, thank you. It's a great point. Then we're able to provide the sensors to collect the data. Along with the partnership, we also do a lot of community outreach. We visit schools and we bring the sensor. We bring a whole water quality kit, which you can partly see here. We have some buckets here and sachets to go over turbidity with the kids. They get a chance to operate a salinity meter. They get a chance to interact with the sensor, the CTD that I'll show you over there in the corner. And we have a variety of other activities that they can partake in. So we visit schools. Every 2 years, we have the SOAS open house where the public is invited to come up to UH and go into the labs and interact with the equipment that's in the lab and talk with lab personnel about the research that they're doing. The next SOAS open house is going to be October 20th and 21st. The Friday is usually, you can come both days, but typically Friday is a lot of schools that come on Friday. So a lot of kids are there Friday, and then Saturday is sort of more family that come along. We also go to local events. People can come to our lab, and we have internships for both high school and undergrads. For the events, whenever we go out, we do have, as I mentioned before, a lot of hands-on interactive activities for the kids or for adults also. So the Sechi disc, we go over turbidity. So our sensor, which I'll show you again later, everything is sort of encapsulated in this instrument, right? So if you are not familiar with the instrument, then it's very hard to sort of figure out or understand, well, how does it work? Or, you know, why does it do what it does? And so we break it down into interactive activities. So each of the different parameters that the sensor measures, we have an activity to show you how that particular parameter is measured. Here we are at the Waikiki Aquarium. This is their annual Mako Te Makai event. And we go there every year. A lot of people come through. As I mentioned before, the SOAS open house. I think in 2015, more than 6,000 people came by. So if you didn't go in 2015, I encourage you to come in October. It's really great. You get a chance to go into the buildings and enter the labs. A lot of great talks and presentations and displays. This one here is of a wave buoy. And you get there's a wave tank that's off to the side too that you get to generate your own wave. And again, the next event is on October 20th and 21st. Here we are at the North Shore Ocean Fest and at the beach cleanup for Friends of Kewalos. So if there's any sort of event that you guys are having, and yes.
What is that, Friends of Kiwanis?
So it's a group that primarily of surfers that have been surfing down at Kewalos, I think, from what I understand. So I've only been here for 13 years, but I guess back in the day it was like a dump, maybe. It was, sorry.
Because, there are no S's in the Hawaiian words.
Yes, I understand that. I understand. No, I understand that. I understand that. But the group, that is the group's name. So I only can use the name. Yes, I only can use the name. I understand
The
that.
surf spot is referred to as Kiwanis.
SK Wallows, yeah. So that's just the name of the surf spot. Yeah. So I totally understand. I totally understand that. And when I wrote this up, I was speaking to our outreach coordinator about it. And I was like, but we kind of decided to go with that because that was their name. That's the actual name of the group.
Well, this bothers me because, Hawaiian language is a living language.
It's very
It
true.
should be done correctly.
Yes, that is very true. I completely agree with you.
Well, what's the thing? What you had, that POHNPI, what's that?
Ponape.
It's not just PONPE?
Uh,
Is that a different place?
no, that's the spelling of the region or the place in Federal States of Micronesia. Yeah. So we go and we do outreach. So the group contacted us and asked us to come out and set up a site there and go over what we do in our lab. And we spoke with the kids. So here I am setting up the booth for the day before we do the beach cleanup. And that is it. Any questions?
Any questions?
What's your URL?
Sorry?
What's your URL for the site?
Oh, for the site. That is good. Do we have internet here?
Yes. I can bring it up. Okay. Is it just PacIOOS?
Yeah. Okay.
This is it.
Yeah. So that's our site. And so you can go, so for example, with the water quality sensor, so you hover over water characteristics, and then you can go to any one of the sites that we have here. And then the turbidity plume model is over here, which is currently down. They're trying to fix the coding for the model right now. So we also have buoys, wave buoys, water temperature buoys. And besides the water characteristics, you can go to the interactive map, Voyager. Then,
It's kind of slow. Our
Okay.
internet, yeah. We still have dial-up internet.
yes.
It's slow.
No, we do not have a buoy in Hanauma Bay. I would like to get one here. Actually, I just talked to our PI, my boss, about putting a sensor up on the North Shore, right by Ali'i Beach Park, because when there's a lot of rain there, that the stream that enters into that area, there's a lot of brown water discharge there. And so we would like to set up a sensor there. I would definitely like to set up a sensor there, but it's about funding and whether or not we can have that available. But no, we don't have one here in Hanauma Bay. Any other questions? Yes.
Mr. Walker, when did the federal program PacIOOS begin?
So in 2009, when they signed the PacIOOS Act, that's when each of the stations were formalized. So in 2009.
Do you have a personal level of limit for water flow that you will go out?
Oh, that I won't go out? That's a good question. If there, let's see. I would say, now I don't have a particular, let's say, number, but if it's raining for like a good part of the morning, then yeah, I'll chill, yeah.
That doesn't correlate to your graphs.
Oh, in what way?
As far as how, if I look at your graph, about side by side water,
Oh, if you want to look at the graph, oh, okay, that's a good question. So technically, for liability reasons, I can't give you a number. Yeah, I cannot, yes, you have to make that choice for yourself, yeah.
I'm not a scientist.
But good question. Yes.
Can you add sensors on later for like, say, sunscreen stuff? Yeah, oxygen zones and stuff.
Oh, okay, that's a good question. I don't currently know of a sensor that measures that in the water yet. There are other sensors that are out there, like you can add, so can we go to the sensor?
Yeah.
Or?